Hey guys, we are live. How's this look? Got this nice light. This light, there's something slightly special about this light. It's not quite right for me. It used to be over a bed, but I got the light, got this light. How are you guys doing today? Where are you from? And how are you feeling? And what are you working on? Hello, Brandon. Welcome. Hello, Madison Busman. Welcome back. Buffalo Mitch, it's your first time. Super glad to have you here. Glad you have questions. So, Skoolie Support is basically an opportunity for me to help you guys with your builds by answering your questions. I have done 2 builds and traveled 25,000 miles around the country with my family of 4. And so maybe I'm just a step ahead or 2 of you guys. But I just want to be able to give back to all of you guys in the Skoolie community and who are part of my channel, bestow my knowledge for whatever it's worth, because I know what it was like to be in the first few weeks, the first few months, the first year of a build. And the normal thing to do is to sort of like Google things, go on forums, ask questions, watch YouTube videos. And the reality is that you get a lot of opinions that way. You get opinions from people who have done it before and people who have not done it before. And it's challenging to filter through that information. And I, in the early days, ended up spending a lot of my time not getting anything done because I was unsure of what to do. So basically, I switched it up after a month or so, and I would just reach out to a couple of trusted advisors. One of them was my father-in-law, Bob, who I hit up for carpentry advice. And another one was Charlie Kearns, who is on YouTube as Chuck Cassidy. I would call him when I had problems and when I had a bunch of questions at once, and he would help me through the process. And I found that this was actually, for me, absolutely the best way to do it. So I'd like to be able to help you from sort of a more amateur builder perspective, given that I've done 2 builds. And the way that I do it is sort of like, let's not create huge problems for ourselves. Let's just get a bus done, make it look good, go hard on the solar, because that's how you can stay well equipped on the road, in my opinion. And let's travel to nice places and see nice things and experience nice weather. So, Skoolie Support. And at any given time, you can ask me questions and I will get to them soon. Hello, Paper 6200. What is up is right. And hi, Kyle. Welcome, guys. Welcome. So if you would like my personal help one-on-one, you can email me at gilliganphantom.com and we can set up a totally free phone call. You can ask me all the questions you can in 30 minutes. And if it's something you want to continue on, you can go to schooliesupport.com and join my Patreon, which is a monthly fee to have me in your back pocket at all times. So I've got 3 people doing that right now. I think they're getting a lot of value out of it. It's really an honor to be able to help them, myself, for me. And I also get to keep, I get to keep all these ideas sharp and all the things that I learned sharp as I help others do it. So it's been a super net positive for me. And if that's something that you'd like help with, hit me up, gilliganphantom@gmail.com. So does anybody have any questions? Feel free to drop them below. If not, I'm actually going to go to my YouTube comment section because I had a viewer just kind of like binge the first build series, and I was not able to get to all of his questions. He was just rifling off questions. But if you are here, I'm going to answer all your questions right now. Is it Buffalo Mitch? It might be Buffalo Mitch. No, it's no. Oh man, now I can't find them. It is Buffalo Mitch. Yay. All right, well, Buffalo Mitch, I'm here to answer all your questions. I'm so sorry I didn't get to these earlier. I've just been really busy in this transition period in our lives. So Buffalo Mitch's first question is, would welding the hatches have been an option? So Mitch, I'm just going to go for Mitch, is referring to my, excuse me, my, wait, you said hatches, and you were talking about my rust removal video. So I guess I don't quite understand the question. If you want to tell me what you mean by hatches, I guess I thought maybe you were talking about the Max Air fans or the marine hatches I put in the first bus, but no. Your second question, how do you usually look for a bus to buy? Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, someplace else? We did a whole episode about this. I believe it was episode 4. It will be very clear in the title what the episode is about. So you can watch the first 15 minutes of it. I go through all of my favorite sources. But while I do look at Craigslist and I do look at Facebook Marketplace, I first look at publicsurplus.com, govdeals.com, and those are both websites that are auctioning off government-owned, whether it's municipal or federal or something else, vehicles. And there's a lot of great buses on there. That's like the Skoolie bus hunter's first destination. There are also other auction sites. And one of my favorite tools is searchallofcraigslist.com. I lied. It's searchcraigslist.net. I'm going to drop this in the chat. And I like to search for, like some of my favorite terms. Like I might search for Bluebird Cummins bus. And then I can see basically what's out there all through the whole country on Craigslist. I find that to be a great tool. Those 4 to 5 sources are probably my favorites. And it used to be that the dealers would have a relatively expensive, relatively old, but excellent bus for sale. I actually got Gilligan Phantom at A to Z Bus Sales, which is in California. And AAA bus sales might have buses, but I've found that the dealers maybe have mostly gone through the early 2000s rigs, and us bus converters are really only interested in pre-emissions buses, which means that there are no diesel particulate filters, no DEF, diesel exhaust fluid, and no complicated emission systems that are expensive to own, repair, and maintain. Generally, that means pre-2006. It really depends which bus, because some buses were trying to meet emission standards early, and early 2000s and earlier is the way to go. Anyways, long story short, the dealers can't make a bunch of money off those, so I sort of think they're done with them. And someday, I guess we will all be done with them too, or we'll just be trading them back and forth on Facebook Marketplace. So hello, Kai from Tampa. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. John Mendez is here. He's one of our patrons. Thanks so much for plugging it. I think, me and John are having a lot of fun planning his bus. And John's got a front engine 29-foot bus. He's got a really exciting build plan for it, and I'm excited to see it happen. Hello, child of Yah. So if you guys want to drop questions at any time, you're welcome to. I'm going to go back to Buffalo Mitch's comments because he had some great ones. So Buffalo Mitch asks on our solar rack install video, what length bolts did you use? It was probably 1.5 inches. It might have been 2 inches. Stainless steel, because I don't want them to rust. The racks that I install are painted. Well, the feet are painted aluminum. So because it's painted, you don't have to worry about galvanic corrosion, but the inside of the bus is steel. Stainless steel bolts are really expensive. I actually do wonder if I could get away with zinc, but I haven't tried that. He mentions that blue Loctite to the threads of the bolts for added safety would make sense. I totally agree with you. What happens when I install the bolts for the roof racks is that I put a bunch of silicone underneath the foot. I'm sorry you haven't watched this video, this is going to make no sense, but and the bolt actually like picks up a bunch of that silicone as it tightens on. And I have checked those bolts and they don't go anywhere, but because I put the nut at the top, I believe I should be able to tighten it at any time. And I've checked and they don't move. So it might be that silicone or it might just, oh, and of course I use lock nuts. I use lock nuts, which have, I guess it's plastic. There's a little plastic ring in the nut. And when that gets cranked on, it's not going to move. And that is specific for vibration. So if you used a lock washer and then bolted your bolt or you tightened your nut on, that might shake loose over time. But those lock nuts, they're not really going anywhere. How many square feet of wool did you buy for the insulation? I don't know. I definitely didn't. It's not a square foot thing. It's a bag thing. But I thought I mentioned, well, we used 3 of their double bags and we had too much. Let me go to Havelock Wool because I do think that their products have changed a little bit, or at least like what they're selling has changed. So they're selling oh, okay. I see where you're asking this now. They're selling 100 square foot in a box. So it covers 100 square feet, which means I don't exactly know how much I used anymore in comparison to their new box of 100 square foot. But my guess for a 40-foot bus would be you're not going to need 3 boxes, but you're going to need more than 2 boxes. So we used probably the equivalent of 3 boxes. I hope that answers your question. Let me get back to the live. Let's see here. Buffalo Mitch, drop in the comments questions. I gotta find it again. Sorry guys, I'm lost in my tabs. I got too many tabs. All right. Okay, sorry about the delay. Buffalo Mitch asks, did you put any sort of sealer or finish on the wood to provide some dirt protection? Yes, for sure. In our Rod Caravan, I wasn't there for it. Katie and Sam did it. I believe they used a Minwax product. I think it's called Minwax. Basically, long story short, water-based polyurethane, 2 but probably 3 coats. Or you could use oil-based and get away with definitely just only 2 coats. But the oil-based polyurethane, it ambers over time, so the wood darkens a little bit, and the water-based does not. So I like the water-based because you know what you're going to get. You're going to make the wood look wet, and you're going to protect it, and that is totally the way to go. All right. I think I got through Buffalo Mitch's questions. So I have some things that okay, I have some ideas if you guys want to hear about them. Okay, I got a question. Child of Yah asks, any thoughts on a water catching system for the roof of the bus dripping down to a water tank? I think that's a very reasonable idea. I just don't know how I just don't know how to do it. Like, how are you going to catch the water, filter it, bring it into the bus? I guess bringing it into the bus is the easy part. Really what happens is on the top of a school bus, you've got this rounded bus and the water falls off the edges and it goes to the drip rails. And then the drip rails either send water, depending on how the bus is sitting, to the front of the bus or to the back of the bus, or more likely the gutters get clogged. And actually, now that I think about it, a lot of buses don't have gutters. They just have this like window protecting lip so that the water goes over the lip. and doesn't seep into where the window is sealed. So if you have a gutter, it would be easier, but the gutters are so thin, and as soon as they get something in them, the water just pours off the sides. So like whenever I have an issue like that, I'm always wondering like, it, is it easy to solve, and does it solve a problem that I have that's not easy to solve? And if you are boondocking, not boondocking, but if you're off grid, if you're like living in your bus stationary, then absolutely setting up some kind of water catchment into a tank, and then probably filtering the tank and then pumping it into your bus. Filtering the water and pumping it into the bus makes a lot of sense. But water is pretty easy to find on the road. It's probably the resource that's the easiest to find. Anywhere there's a garden hose, whether that's a park, like an RV park, a rest area, a friend's house, some gas stations. It's not that hard to find. The thing that's hard to find is, it's not hard to find, but the thing that you're going to need, and it's only going to be at an RV park or a campground or a couple rest areas around the country, is a dump station. So a dump station is always sort of what you're looking for on the road. And of course, when you get there, they have water. So there's nothing really obvious comes to mind. But you know what? I don't have one of those like intricate engineering brains. I'm like a Legos person. Give me some Legos and some instructions, or maybe not even any instructions, and I'll make something with it. But I know a lot of people who have the brain for that, and it's just not quite how I tick. So let me know what you got. I think it's a cool idea. So Wendy says, I don't think it's a question, but I'll read it anyway. Hey Justin, we've been watching from the beginning and use your videos as a resource for our build. We have been living in our bus full time since the end of May. We love it, but definitely have some issues you might be able to help us with. All right, Wendy, hit us with the issues. I definitely, so if you follow what I do, which I think is, mostly a good idea, it worked for me. Your mileage is going to vary because you're going to execute it in different ways, and which is probably not the most important part. The most important part is that your needs are going to be slightly different than mine. So you've got to basically take what I do and adapt it to yourself. And then, things are going to come up in pretty much everybody's bus conversion. There's little things that I deal with to this day that are a little bit silly, but I figured out how to deal with them instead of fixing them. Like when I built Gilligan Phantoms, when I built Nova's bedroom and I made the storage compartment underneath it, I just put wooden doors on them and I Velcroed them into place. Well, it turns out getting the Velcro off was very challenging. So after a while, I nixed the Velcro and then I put magnets, like really strong magnets. And then that also was really hard to get off. And the reality is I should just build drawers and put them on a drawer slide. But, I just didn't have the time or energy for that work. So we just made it work. And so the other thing is I could do those RV latches, but, I figured out how to take the doors off. Anyways, not a great example, not super important, but let's see what Wendy's got. Okay, so Wendy is worried her inverter might not be large enough. We have a 3,000 watt inverter. Do you have the Victron MultiPlus 23,000 VA, which actually gives you 2,400 watts of continuous power? If you do, let me know. And then once you've let me know, tell me what you're running all at once that inverter cannot handle. And something that you should know while we wait for Wendy's response is that the 3000 VA MultiPlus, let me find it so I can drop it in the chat. You guys can see what I'm talking about. It is a 24 volt 3000. Here we go. It actually only consistently does 2,400 watts. I think this is it. Yeah, that's it. So here it is coming into the chat. right now. Boom. Okay, so Wendy does have this inverter. Wendy, tell us what you're running at the same time that you can't run. Or tell us why you think that your inverter is not big enough. So this inverter can run 2,400 watts continuous. What that means is that you can run pretty much everything in your bus that's normal, like, and you can run an air conditioner, a mini split AC, which surges to a little bit more than 1,000 watts, will run on high, like at turbo mode, at 900 to 1,000 watts, and will sort of sustain a temperature at 600 to 800 watts. So let's just say it's taking up 1,000 watts. That's quite a bit of power to be drawing. And if you went and turned on your induction cooktop to high, which is actually pretty rare, but I'm assuming that you have what I have. So induction cooktop on high uses 1,800 watts. If you've got the mini split on high or even on low, the induction cooktop on high, and your normal loads are running, now you have basically overloaded your inverter, which you can only do for a sustained period of time. Like I think it might be 3 minutes. And maybe that's enough to boil a pot of water, maybe it's not. But what you've got to do is you've got to bump that induction cooktop down. Or another scenario is your water heater turns on. Yeah, that also takes 1,800 watts. You can't necessarily run that with the air conditioner on as well. So you have to make a compromise as you are living. And you've got to turn off the water heater when you're not using it. And you've got to turn off the AC when you don't need it. Basically, instead of spending an extra $1,300 and getting a second multi-plus, which was my original plan if I needed it, I decided to just navigate that, and that worked out fine for me. You can also buy the Victron Quattro 5000, which will give you close to 5,000 watts. It's twice the price of the multi-plus, but that will allow you to run everything continuous with no problems at all. So let's check out Wendy and see what is overloading. So Wendy says it overloads when we run our fridge and anything else large, like the hot water heater or the toaster oven. And she doesn't have the AC installed yet. So I think, Wendy, what you need to do is you need to find out what your loads that are overloading the inverter. And unfortunately, the only way to do that is, and unless you buy the Victron dongle, I think that's what it's called. It's a weird name, but you've got to buy this Bluetooth module. That's right, they call it a dongle. I hate that you have to buy this, and I hate that it's $93. I bought it because I wanted to know what was going on with my inverter. You attach this to your inverter, and then you can download the Victron app, and then you can see exactly how many watts are being drawn from your inverter or pulled through your inverter. I'm going to drop this in the chat. Oh, you have the dongle. Okay. So here's the dongle. So now that you have access to what appliances are using, well, to how many watts you're pulling, you've got to start, unplug everything, turn everything off, right? And then plug in your normal loads, like, turn on some AC lights and plug in your laptop charger or your phone charger. See what your baseline is. The inverter uses 25 watts while it's running. Maybe now once you plug those in, your baseline is 60 watts. I'm not quite sure what you're running with it, but find out what your baseline is, and then go ahead and turn on the toaster oven and see what happens. It's going to start pulling 1,800 watts. In addition to your normal loads, that is getting you, close to 2,000. You should still be able to have your fridge running and not come anywhere near 2,400 watts, unless you've got some high draw item that I'm not aware of. So that's my advice to you. And if you have any idea what the high draw items that you are using are, you can drop them in the chat. But that's how I navigate that. And if it's not enough for you and you have space for it, you might have to buy a second multi-plus because you can gang them together and you can double your AC watts. Child of Yah says, any thoughts on dedicated space for men's or boys' urinal, or just getting used to sitting down to pee? Well, I think having I don't know about child's and men's urinal, but having a place to pee standing up is totally fine. It's another thing that you're going to have to clean that pee goes into. And I have not encountered a better thing than the composting toilets for managing pee. So I have seen in other people's builds, I have seen like a stand-up urinal. It's not like a real urinal. It's like something that's been adapted. And I don't know that I would add that second thing to clean that pee goes into. This is sort of an intimate, it's an intimate thing, the fact that we have to manage our pee. But getting used to sitting down to pee for me was absolutely no issue at all. And because I have three ladies in my house, Val, Nova, and River, I definitely need to put the toilet seat down. And so the cool thing is having sat down to pee in the bus, now when we're not in the bus, I know to put the toilet seat down. So something you can definitely get used to. It's very easy to pee into the nature's head or the airhead spot. And for your son, it might be a little bit more challenging, but I don't think I would add any more complication. I would just figure out how to do that. So Olive and Dust 2020 says, opinion about having headlights with turn signals attached. Yeah, you could do that. What happens to your turn signals once you've done that? Did you somehow make them disappear, or like why? Because it's cool. I think it's cool, but I'm not quite sure how the wiring works for that. It's that's a little bit of a change to your custom setup. Now, if you swap out your headlights for other headlights, it's just a plug and play. If you swap out your turn signals, it's plug and play. But you're gonna have to change the wiring in some capacity to handle those turn signals, which is something I haven't done. So I can't really advise you on it, but it sounds cool. All right, Buffalo Mitch has a bus that his son is interested in. Cool. I love talking about buses. He's got a 2006 Bluebird Transit Bus. Is it like the Bluebird Transit Bus that you watched us build? If so, that's really cool. Is it a CS? Is it a front engine or rear engine? I'm just curious. It's got 140,000 miles. It's fantastic. The tires are in great shape. New batteries. Cummins ISB 230 5.9 liter with the Allison tranny. The bus ride's great. The AC doesn't work. The wiper fluid pump doesn't work, and only the high beam headlights work. But the bus had to be pulled out of a ditch, and the insurance company totaled it, and it's being offered at $5,000 with a salvage title. What do you think? My gut response is that bus is definitely worth $5,000. Does the salvage title matter? I don't think so. I think that should be easy to explain to a new buyer if you had to resell in the future, as long as you know how to navigate the salvage title thing, which isn't something I've done before. That's like a local DMV issue. You've got a 32 footer, very cool. Is it rear engine or front engine? And if you happen to know, what is the Allison transmission? So the Cummins 5.9 it's a fantastic engine. It's one of the most fuel efficient engines that we have available to us. It's slightly underpowered for a 32 footer. I would be interested to know what the bus's top speed is. I would want to make sure it's not governed. I would want to make sure it's appropriately geared. If it's a city transit bus, then it's possible that it's not going to do, or it hasn't been built to do 65 on the highway. And doing 65 on the highway is sort of critical for your long-term comfort as a driver. So I think you've got a couple more questions to answer, but from what you've told me, the bus is definitely worth $5,000. Scott asks, are you still required to have CDL and bus endorsement if it is considered an RV? Very interesting question. So there's this like great internet debate about CDLs and stuff like that. But as far as I know, I think the CDL is like a DOT issue, but the commercial driver's license is only required for commercial vehicles. And once you take your bus and you make it not for commercial use, like you take the seats out of it, and you can, like, let's just say you're going to haul around big pieces of wood for your own purposes, not commercially. There's no, these aren't the right terms, but there's nothing to tell you that you have to have a commercial driver's license. Now, a tractor trailer, like, it's only being used for one thing. You have to have a CDL to drive it. But long story short, as soon as you make your bus not commercial, you don't need, in any state, as far as I know, a CDL. Now, you might need a special license, and it might take training, and it might take a bit of work to get it. For example, in my state, you need a Class E license for any vehicle over 26,000 pounds. My state is South Carolina. And what that means is that if you've got a big bus like I do, you do have to take a test, and you've got to pass the test. And it's easy to pass as long as you have somebody who can, take you out in your rig for a couple training sessions. No big deal. So other states are different. Some states have no requirements at all. But as soon as your bus is not commercial, you don't need a CDL. And as soon as it is an RV, as in you've changed it to an RV and its title now says motorhome or whatever it says, you definitely don't need a CDL anywhere. But you might need a special license depending on if it has air brakes or not, and if it weighs a lot. So yeah, Buffalo Mitch's son has his eye on a 32-foot rear engine Bluebird Transit Bus. And I think you just need to figure out how fast it goes. I want to know what transmission it is. If you can figure it out, what the gear ratio is, and anything below like 4:1, 4.10 is probably a go. And hello, Javier, welcome back. And yeah, just, I just want to know how fast it goes. Katie and Sam's bus was a college shuttle bus, and it had an Allison 3000, and I think that it might have had 6 gears. It had an overdrive, and it did more than 75 miles per hour, and that was really fantastic. And it had what's it called? Cruise control. That was so nice to have, and it had a Cummins 8.3, so it has a more powerful engine than the one that you're looking at. But if you have a similar setup in the Cummins 5.9, maybe it just has a little bit less guts than Katie and Sam's bus, it's definitely a go. I want to see it. That's an exciting bus, in my opinion, because that bus was such a great platform to build on, and a 32-foot pusher is just so ideal and maneuverable. So I'm really into it. Hello, E. Whitaker. Welcome. Thanks for coming. You just got a GMC Short Bus to convert. That is really exciting. I think the demo stage is like the most fun, so I hope you have some fun with that. And if you have to remove rivets, I would definitely buy an air compressor. Okay. Scott is a school bus driver and bus mechanic. Well, you are well equipped to take on a build. He's got 26 years of OTR. I'm going to assume that says on the road, with 3 million miles. 3 million miles. That is so cool. School bus drivers to me are just fantastic. Nova is possibly taking the school bus soon. She's really excited about it. I'm excited for her to have that experience too. Thank you for your 26 years of service, by the way. And you just bought a 2000 Chevy Bluebird, only paid $750. Yeah, if you are, you know what, this is sort of a lesson to us other folks. Maybe Scott, maybe you can tell me if this is, a little foolish, but I strongly believe that if you build a relationship with your local school district and you figure out when they're letting buses go, and you figure out what buses are available, I think you can go talk to their mechanics, and they would probably be happy to tell you about these buses. And maybe you can buy a bus straight from the district. When I was shopping for Gilligan Phantom, I was definitely more than willing to talk with districts specifically. And some districts do not, many districts don't sell their buses at auction. They just find some way to sell them. And that means they might be selling them for extremely cheap. So correct me if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I think that building a relationship, try not to be too annoying, but getting to know your local school district might be a really good idea. So Child of Yah is building a 2007 40-foot Bluebird Skoolie. It has a Cat C7 front engine with a 5-speed Allison tranny, 210 horsepower. Got it from Northwest Bus Sales. Cool. Yeah, so like Northwest Bus Sales is one of those dealers that you can find a good bus at. And it's getting kind of rare. He drove it to Colorado and it runs like a champ. Well, congratulations. That sounds fantastic. I'm curious, do you know yet how many miles per gallon you get on that Cat C7? Because the Cat C7 is a little bit more of a modern engine. I don't know anybody who's got it. I've seen the older Cats many times. I'm just curious if you can get. I'm basically like, I'm looking for the rig that can get, well, the big Skoolie, they can get 10 miles per gallon. They're out there. Sam and Katie's Bluebird Transit 32-foot rear engine with the Cummins 8.3, per our calculations, did 10 miles per gallon, which is a lot better than 7. That's 30%, 40% better. Oh, okay. All right. Wow. So E. Whitaker's GMC Short Bus has 1 million miles. Am I reading that right? Did you add next? Yeah, I'm reading that wrong. 100,000 miles. That's fantastic. That's great. You are welcome, Child of Yah. Okay, so Scott is confirming that I am correct. You can go talk to a district, no problem. Oh, right, okay. So he's mentioning only if the school district owns their own buses. My local school district does not own their own buses. It's a private company called maybe Durham School Services, and Durham is in North Carolina, so that's a little strange. But you make a good point. There's a lot of private companies that own the buses that run buses. And Scott works for an international transportation company that buys and sells buses regularly. Cool. Well, Scott, how can we hit you up about buses? How can we get the $750 bus? I have not heard of a $750 bus before. I've heard of like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, but three numbers, I don't think it's been done. All right, so Javier's Detroit Diesel Series 50 gets 10 miles per gallon going 55. Maybe. That would be cool. 55 is a little slow. It probably does. 55 is a little slow. 60, you probably get used to it. I got very used to 60. My bus does 68. 68 is like flooring it. 65 is like flooring it. I did find that when I was doing 55, my mileage went from 6 to 7 to from 7 to 8. And 7 to 8, when fuel prices went up, was a lot better than 6 to 7, believe it or not. So Series 50 Detroit is really cool. All right, Buffalo Mitch has mentioned that the seller of the Bluebird Transit Bus has another bus, same model, similar mileage, had a coolant leak. How hard is that to fix? We're gonna be able to get it for $4,500. All right, so if the coolant leak is a hose, that is extremely easy to fix. Buy that bus. Should cost you $30, and it should take an hour. or get a shop to do it. They'll charge you $300 and that's fine. You know, maybe $200. If it's a coolant leak from somewhere else, oof, I don't know. It's probably still worth $4,500 because if you can fix that coolant leak no matter what for $1,000, you've got a great bus for $5,500. We spent $7,000 on Katie and Sam's. I thought that was a fine price, and I would gladly pay just as much again for the same bus. I'd pay more if I had to. So I would actually probably target that bus with the coolant leak, because if it only has one thing to deal with, it's probably pretty straightforward. Okay, so Candace, welcome. There was no certain topic today, so yeah. Next week, we need to talk about topics. Actually, I know what next week's topic is, but if you have ideas for me, feel free to drop them in the chat. I have a lot of ideas. I have so many ideas about topics that it makes it hard to pick them, and sometimes I just end up going Q&A because I just can't pick. So I would really, really love to know what you are interested in, and that goes for any of you, because it'll help me decide what to talk about. So Candace is going to have a family of 5 in a 40-foot pusher with 200 gallons of fresh water, and she's thinking about using an RV toilet. And what are my thoughts? So RV toilet means obviously you have to dump a black tank, and you're going to have to do it more often, and you're going to have to use water to flush the toilet. And I think that is something that you should just navigate, because I don't really think that a nature's head, in my opinion, a nature's head doesn't work for a family of 5. Well, it does work. You can bag up, you can bag it up, but it's not going to be composting anything. And you're going to have to do it probably every 3 weeks. But you might also consider making your own composting toilet. One that, while it vents the box that the toilet's in and it diverts the pee, it has a bag and a container. That way you can tie up the bag, throw it away. I said this in the last live stream. I save mine in 5-gallon buckets underneath the bus until I have the moment where I have a place to dump it that I know is going to be dumping their dumpsters. I just said dump a lot of times, like every single night. So rest areas. I know that rest areas, because I've been there plenty, have their dumpsters removed, if not daily, extremely frequently. So you just might have to carry some of your poo under the bus. But if you are planning on visiting campgrounds have dump stations, and dumping your blackwater tank, well, I haven't done it, it's probably 15% grosser than dumping a gray water tank with pee in it, which is technically still a blackwater tank. So it might be, it's hard to say. It really just, I'm going to say it comes down to this one thing. Do I want to boondock more, or do I want to be in campgrounds more? If it's campground, RV toilet. If it's boondock, the RV toilet's not going to last you anywhere near as long as the composting toilet will. And that 200 gallons of fresh water could probably last you close to 2 weeks in a boondocking spot. And you might want to stay in a boondocking spot for 2 weeks. Totally depends on what your plan is. All right, Buffalo Mitch has a question specific to the Bluebird Transit Bus. These buses have engines in the back, and inside it has a couple of steps up. Oh, inside it has a couple of steps up and about 12 seats over the rear wheels. Any idea what might be underneath? Can we claim that space? Okay, so you're saying you've got your engine compartment, and in the back portion of the bus, you have an elevated platform. I wonder what's under there. Maybe coolant lines for heaters. Maybe that's it. Can you get under the bus and see if the bus's floor is flat underneath? I suspect that you will be able to reclaim that space. I do suspect it. It might mean that you need to reroute coolant lines that feed your heaters. If you're getting rid of your heaters, you're going to have to do that anyway. Okay. Scott, who is our resident school bus expert with 1 million miles in a bus and 26 years of service, has given a vote of confidence to Mitch, saying that that bus is definitely worth $4,500. Totally agree. E. Whitaker asks, do you know where I can find a wiring diagram for my bus? No. Besides Googling it and going on forums and asking, somebody out there on a forum has your wiring diagram, so you can find it, but I don't know exactly where to look for it. Blacksmith Tribe has a Gillig Low 4 with an 8.9 Cummins ISL with an Allison B4000 unlocked 6th gear, and they get around 8 miles per gallon. That's awesome. That really sounds like a bus that is going to be great on the highway. Justin says, thanks for your content. Thank you so much, Justin. Oh, and E. Whitaker. I'm sorry. E. Whitaker's got a Collins. Yeah, so a forum. By the way, guys, I think next week I'm going to talk about the fact that I'm ungutted. I'm not going to get into it now, but I'm going to be gutting or renovating a bus on TV, on a TV show. And it is also a Collins. It's a 5-window Collins, but it's made by Chevy, not GMC. All right, Scott is asking, where can I send pictures of my bus and what we do with it? I'm thinking about posting my progress on a YouTube channel, but this is going to be a fairly slow conversion. You can always send me photos at gilliganphantom@gmail.com. I don't always answer immediately, but I love to see photos, and I will always say thank you and tell you that you're doing a good job, unless I see some major red flags. In which case, I'll just say, like, hey, but no, you're going to do a great job, no matter what. Mitch asks, is it hard to disconnect the air connections that handle the handicap ramp, the kneeling feature that we don't need? The bus has air brakes and uses air to open and close the door. It is generally not hard to disconnect air connections. They have like this, well, I shouldn't say they always do. They don't always, actually. So okay, so to answer your question, you've probably got these, hopefully you've got these braided steel lines running from your compressor to your handicap. What's the thing called? It's a kneeling. Okay, so you've got a handicap ramp and a kneeling feature. The kneeling feature, if I could just leave the kneeling feature, I would just leave it because it doesn't bother you at all. The handicap ramp, obviously you have to get rid of. And so it's probably a braided steel line, and it is usually, well, the one that I replaced is bolted on, it's threaded, and it's got some, sealant tape to keep it from leaking. And my first thought is that the thing, hopefully it's as easy as this. You disconnect the airline from the ramp, and you disconnect the airline from your compressor, and hopefully you can just cap that airline with the right sized threaded fitting with some thread sealant, and you should be good. So I hope that's what it is, but I haven't handled that issue before. Okay, Taylor Catlin has condensation on the inside of the windows. That is very understandable. When you have, is it condensation now? Like, is it so cold in your bus and so hot outside that you've got condensation? Or are you talking about in the winter in general? It's hot inside and cold outside. My experience with condensation was only in the winter. When we were running electric space heaters and we were parked stationary, and it was in the 40s at night, which is obviously not that cold for some people, but for us it's pretty cold. I would wake up to condensation, and I would take a towel and I would wipe. It was at the base of each window, and it was around the schoolie hatch. And I would take a towel and I would clean it up, and it would bother me, of course. And so Sorry, I got distracted by the chat. So that obviously is not ideal. When we went to the diesel heater creates a dry heat. It certainly doesn't add moisture to the air. We didn't have the same condensation issues with our diesel heater, but we also didn't hit 40 degrees ever. Maybe one night in our diesel heater. If you've got propane adds moisture to the air. Honestly, I think you got to clean it or run a dehumidifier or okay, Taylor's mentioning it's when it's warmer inside and cooler outside in New York. Yeah. Well, are you plugged in? And if you are plugged in, can you run a dehumidifier at night? Because that would solve your problem. If you're not plugged in and you're using propane, there's really no great solution to that problem. I think you just wake up and clean it off. And actually, maybe it's happening all day. I don't know, man. It's hard to advise you because I'm in such a warm climate. So I wish I had a better answer for you. But hopefully dehumidifying is a possibility. Scott asks, I see everyone taking out the rear heaters. Would it be better to leave them in and hook into the coolant lines and run PEX pipe and make a radiant flooring system? So that's not a bad idea at all. If you are using your coolant lines with your heater, then you could heat up the bus while the bus is running under the floor in a radiant system, but it would only be useful while the bus is running. I think it would make more sense to me if you're going to do radiant heat to make a whole radiant heat system where you could heat up water that could flow through the PEX pipe at any time. Maybe you can tie that into the coolant system. That is a little bit beyond the scope of work that I've done, but there are people who have, if you go into this bus building project and you have experience like Scott's, where you are a bus mechanic, it opens up a lot of doors to ideas that to the complete amateur seem too complicated. And radiant floor heat is one of those things, but I definitely think there's a way to do it where you could add a supplemental, while not driving the bus, heat source to that coolant system and have the best of all worlds. So I think you can probably figure that out, Scott, and let me know if it works out. Mitch says the bus has a huge AC unit on the roof and it hasn't worked in at least 10 years, according to the seller. Do we need to have a tech look at it to remove any Freon? Yeah, you do. Before you park that bus, take it to, I don't know that you can take it to you might be able to take it to even an auto repair shop, but I would call some shops. There's probably three options: a truck shop, an auto repair shop, or a local HVAC technician. If you can bring the bus to them, you will be able to get that Freon out of there as cheap as possible. Because if you park it and then deal with the problem later, you might have a tougher time getting an HVAC tech to come to you to remove that Freon. But okay, so sorry, I didn't pay attention to the nuance of your question. It hasn't worked for 10 years. It's possible that there's no Freon in there, and I think you just have to do what feels right and safe to you. And but you're right. There's a chance that there's no Freon in there if it hasn't been run in 10 years, assuming that leaked out. But it could not work, and there could be Freon in parts of it. So hope that answers your question. Child of Yas is what do you use for good Wi-Fi internet connections? So WeBoost, Taylor has mentioned, there's some competitors as well, which will help boost your 4G LTE. And that is a way to make your internet better. But I actually use, I'm really cheating with the Wi-Fi thing, because I had a firefighter specific. I was a firefighter before taking off from the bus, and I might be a firefighter again. I haven't decided yet, but just it's definitely on my mind. So I have a really fantastic plan through AT&T that gets you priority access to bands on cell towers, and it's just worked so well. I almost always had service. There's a few places where AT&T just didn't reach, but that's what I used. And because of that, I didn't even install the WeBoost or the High Boost, because it just worked for us. So luckily, Child of Yah, you've got people chiming in the chat to mention that there are other plans. So Scott mentions, as a truck driver, he has used T-Mobile home internet hotspot, $50 a month, and it literally works everywhere you can get service. Yeah, so I only pay $50 a month for mine, which is really cheap. So it's really nice to hear that there are cheap options again, because when I hit the road, it was like, oh my gosh, it was like $100 plus for anything at all. Buffalo Mitch, you are welcome. Thank you. Candace is concerned about being top heavy. 40 feet with an 18-inch raise, deck, and solar. What are some lightweight ceiling options you've seen? Excuse me. Candace, with an 18-inch roof raise and a 40-foot bus, I don't think you're going to feel top heavy. And the ceiling options, they're not going to change your situation that much. But I do know that 1/4-inch birch plywood is what I used, and it's very, very, very light. And I don't think you can get much lighter. But even if you use something like 3/8 or even 1/2-inch tongue and groove, that would be a lot heavier than 1/4-inch birch, probably. But I still don't think you're going to feel it with an 18-inch roof raise. If you said 24-inch roof raise, it might be different. And I don't know if your deck is like straight steel. Maybe if your deck is all steel, you might feel that steel. But I just don't think the ceiling is going to change much for you. So I think you should just use whatever makes sense to you. Okay, looks like we are almost at an hour. So if you have any last questions, feel free to drop them. And if you have any Skoolie Support ideas, feel free to drop them. There's something, so I will tell you that next week we are going to talk about Gutted and the fact that I am on it. And there's not really a lot to say besides the fact that it's a really, really fun TV show that I think you guys should all watch. And I'll just tell you about that part of it now. You can go to blank space. I think it's .app. Let me find it for you. This is how you watch Gutted. So if you're curious about it right now. Okay, so sorry, give me a second. I'm just going to drop the website. And this is, I'm sure you can find on here how to watch it. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so it's completely free to watch, which is so cool. Okay, I found the website. Totally free, just done with sponsors. I was really impressed by this show, and I'm really excited to be on it this next season. It's going to be October 2nd, and we're going to talk about this more in the future, but this is how you watch Gutted. It's this link that I just dropped, blankspace.social. If you want to see a lot of fun bus building, RVs, and vans, you got to check it out. And so yes, Buffalo Mitch, I will be in Missouri for the second season. So I should tell you guys right now, if you are interested in going to Gutted, I'll drop the website. If you're going, there is a discount code for 10% off. I think it's support the bus team. If you're going and you're buying tickets, send me an email so that I know that you're going. There's a day of rest that I will be able to meet up. I think it's the 6th of October. I will confirm that soon. So if you're going for one day and you want to meet up, I will have some time to meet up on the 6th. The other days, I'm not really sure. Probably be too busy. And but if you are going, let me know. Send me an email. And before you buy tickets, make sure you're getting the discount. I think it's support the bus team, but send me an email to make sure. Sorry, I don't have that off the hip. But next week we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to do more Q&A. So let me know what you got. Thanks, guys, for being here. We will see you next Wednesday. Oh, sorry, 8:30 p.m. is a much better time for me. I think I've got to change it because of our kids' new sleep schedules with school. So 8 p.m., not so much. 8:30 next week. See you guys then. Peace.